I am one of your co-hosts today with my dear friend and colleague, Patty Reese. And
Welcome.
today, oh, and today we actually, we're really honored to be able to be interviewing Suzanne Roth Paul. So, Suzanne is a certified primal health coach who considers herself a wellness warrior for
Mm,
women suffering needlessly at the hands of a broken medical system and a food industry that keeps us in the sick care system.
mhm,
She believes that good health starts in the kitchen, where you have control over what you eat and feed your family. But first, you must get what Suzanne calls the poisons in the pantry out of your kitchen before you can begin to heal or prevent and even avoid chronic illnesses that are rampant today, things like obesity and diseases, and the hundreds of autoimmune issues that are now falling into one autoimmune bucket.
mhm,
Suzanne has helped countless women turn back the clock on autoimmune issues related from food, which is actually one of the root causes of illnesses. And actually, root cause, we go back to the soil that is so toxic with the herbicides and the pesticides that you can't even really consider it soil. It's now we look at it as dirt. And that's one of the reasons we love regenerative farming. So I had the pleasure of attending and speaking on Suzanne's summit, The Secrets to Radiant Health, recently. And she brought in 20 experts together to not only educate the public, but inspire all of us to wake up and take charge of our own destiny when it comes to good health and the health of our families. And we'll
mhm.
be talking about that during this show. But for now, I'm going to bring Suzanne in and then I'm going to read the Wellness Crusaders mission statement. So, Suzanne, welcome. Oh, can't hear
Oh,
you.
audio.
We
Here we
had,
go. You hear me
oh,
now?
yep,
Yes.
there you
Yeah.
go. So, welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for that delightful introduction, Lori. I've missed seeing you on screen. And Patty, so nice to meet you today in person and look forward to having a nice chat with you ladies.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Excited to have you, Suzanne.
Thank you.
So, just a few words before we get started with Suzanne's interview. I'm going to just read a little bit on the Wellness Crusaders mission statement. So, the Wellness Crusaders internet radio show weaves together the critical and often overlooked aspects of wellness, including the crucial role of soil health. This engaging series unveils a crucial truth that the health of our soil is deeply intertwined with nutrition, climate, and the sustenance of all life on Earth.
Mm,
For years, the rampant use of chemical farming methods has drastically depleted essential soil nutrients, leading to a decline in plant health and our overall well-being.
mm,
These podcasts emphasize that nutrient rich, high quality food is the foundation of our mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health. We address the critical issues of our diets being deficient in essential nutrients, a problem increasingly linked to the rising mental and physical health challenges we are now seeing across Utah as well as across the US and the rest of the world. The Wellness Crusaders not only highlight these issues, but also provide answers and solutions, upholding the wisdom of Hippocrates, let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food. We are committed to empowering lives, inspiring wellness, and offering solutions. And we hope that all of our listeners will join our crusade. And disclaimers before we get started. that the listeners understand that the role of a health coach is not to prescribe or assess micro or macronutrient levels, to provide healthcare, medical, or nutrition therapy services, or to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease, even though we know that diseases are coming from the foods, condition, or other physical or mental ailment of the human body. Rather, the coach is a mentor and a guide who has been trained in holistic health coaching to help clients positive, sustainable lifestyle changes. The listener also understands that we are not acting in the capacity of a doctor, a licensed dietitian, a licensed nutritionist, a psychologist, or other licensed or registered professionals, and that any advice given by the coach is not meant to take the place of advice by these professionals. If the listener is under care of a healthcare professional or currently using prescription medications, the client should discuss any dietary changes or potential dietary supplement use with his or her doctor and should never discontinue any prescription medications without first consulting his or her doctor. The listener understands that the information mentioned in our talks should not be seen as medical or nursing advice, and it is not meant to take the place of seeing licensed health professionals. And with that,
Mhm.
Suzanne, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. I'm going to actually start on question one. Patty will get through a few questions and then feel free to chime in on any
Okay.
questions that you may have as well.
Okay.
So, Suzanne, you and I go back many years, but I want to know, what are some of the challenges that you personally faced with heavy metal toxic burden load? And when did that journey begin?
Oh, wow. How much time do you say I have?
As long as you need.
The list is long. Well, I'm going to tell my story here, and it goes back to literally in the womb of my mother. So I am 60 years old now. So it's suffice it to say, it's been 60 years of dealing with toxic burden loads in my body. That started in when I was, and I wasn't even hatched yet. And so a lot of this was obviously some of the chronic illnesses that most of us experience today, which is quite scary because we know a lot of it's toxic burden loads. But I'd probably say the most devastating for me was neurological. So I had, a lot of learning challenges. I just didn't feel like I was ever, I could keep up with my classmates in school. And fatigue, energy issues, rampant hormonal imbalances when I got to be a teenager. The list goes on and on, but I'd probably say the most devastating was brain function. And that manifested into a fair amount of mood issues, and a dysregulation of the gut to brain axis was an issue because I was eating foods that were aggravating everything even more. And a lot of those foods had toxins in them, and most of it was because they were foods that not many of us should even be eating because they're so toxic. And primarily that's grains, because we know that they are probably the most highly processed, and they are sprayed, and they are treated with herbicides and fungicides and pesticide residue. And we ingest that, and our bodies and our cells are not meant to be poisoned. And that's what we were doing. We were being poisoned. So I think with my mom, it was because of her health issues that really catapulted me into, when I was born, setting me up for a compromised immune system.
And Suzanne, where did you grow up again?
South Texas, a small agriculture town outside of Corpus Christi on the Gulf Coast, and there was a lot of agriculture. So I grew up around agriculture. It was my backyard,
So a
literally.
lot of spraying with the herbicides and pesticides.
Oh, yeah. We played in the fields. We rode our horses in the fields. We were out in the country. So we definitely were outdoors a lot. And yeah, we were in those fields a lot where, when they were dormant, there wasn't any plants there, but you still had the soil. It was tainted, it was damaged. And we were running around and playing in it. And so, yeah, there was a lot of the spraying right over our house, right over crop dusting, the whole 9 yards. Still is happening.
Okay. And you said that were you 2 years old when you first started getting vaccines as a child?
So, if we go back to the story, I was, as I said, my mom was indicated that my mother had a lot of health issues that she contributed to some of my own immune issues because she was not a healthy eater and she was a junkaholic. She loved chocolate, and to this day, I'm allergic to chocolate. Go figure. But she was a smoker. And I'm the youngest of three girls. So I was 13 years into her smoking by the time she had me. And
Wow.
yeah, I have a sister who's 12 years older than me. And I have another sister who's 5 years older than me. And they didn't have the same issues I did. And we always kept scratching our head. Why is that? Well, I'd been polluted more. By the time my mother was 33 versus 22 when she had my oldest sister, I got the brunt of all of her toxins. So she was a smoker and she didn't eat that well. She was just a junkaholic. She ate well in one regard, but she was addicted to sweets. And so that started. And then when I was born, she told a story probably before she died about 15 years ago that I almost died at the age of 2 because there's a portrait of me. And I said, why do I look so miserable in this portrait? I'm all dressed up and I've got the cutest outfit on, but I don't look very happy. And I said, Mom, what's up with that? And she said, well, we almost lost you. And she didn't tell me this until I was like, I was, an adult. That's 15 years ago. I was in my 40s. And she said, we don't know what happened, but you almost died. So all these years of having these health issues, only when I started seeing a functional medicine doctor in the last 10 years, did they start taking me back, to historically what my health was like. And one of the doctors she just was in the last 5 years, Lori, Dr. Helena Rice, and we basically, her as well. She's the one who basically catapulted me to another level of understanding what really happened to me. So she heard the story. She said, what happened to you? Give me the history. And I said, well, I almost died at the age of 2 and we never could figure out what happened. And she says, well, Suzanne, she looks at me very, very softly and she says, well, Suzanne, what do you think happens at the age of 2? And I looked at her and I thought about my own son, who was like a wild, he was just a wild man at age 2. And I said, oh, are you telling me that I almost died because of the terrible 2 syndrome? And she burst out laughing and she said, no, 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 no. It had nothing to do with the terrible 2s. It just meant that that's when at that time in your life is when you got the most vaccines. And
Oh, great.
so that's when I was like the canary in the coal mine. You had like dozens of children getting vaccines right and left, including my sister, who was just a few years older than me. They didn't have this breakdown. So here I was, had gotten really sick. And that was the beginning of my lifelong history with toxic poisoning.
Mm.
Wow. Okay. And then fast forward, you had Austin, your son, and were you sick during that pregnancy? And then do you feel, hi Austin, do you feel that some of the toxic burden load that you had as a pregnant mother, even though I know you're not a smoker and you were living a pretty clean life, do you feel um, that Austin, just because you were toxic going into the pregnancy, do you feel like that had anything to do with any of his health? Not saying that he's sick, but obviously you got it from your mother, but your mother was a smoker. So for pregnant moms out there, this is a really important question. If they feel that they really need to be concerned about, let's just say, cleaning up the poisons in the pantry, which is the
Mhm.
ebook that you wrote. Do you feel that for moms out there, do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, yeah. If you want to ask me if I feel guilty about that, yeah, I do, because if I only knew what I knew then what I knew today, certainly would have made a big difference because I was eating all those foods that were actually harming me. Couple of things. The good news is Austin is he was a healthy child, and he's obviously pretty well. He's good. And the reason why, we can talk about this in depth too, I'm just going to digress for a second. He
Mhm.
doesn't even have a filling in his mouth. He has no
Wow.
cavities. His teeth are good. And I know that when you have bad teeth, and we all know this, when good health starts in your mouth. So I know that he's miles ahead of me at that age, because at his age, and he's 26, because he's never had a filling in his mouth and he doesn't have any teeth issues. I was already a mouthful of fillings in elementary school.
And
so
silver fillings.
silver. So mercury. So all this
Yeah.
mercury in my head, there's poison number 2 that's toxic. The vaccines were 1, my mother's smoking was 2, and then obviously the mercury and all that in my mouth. So those are really impactful bits of information that assured me that my son was way healthier than I ever was at that age. And I made sure that kid did not eat sugar for the first 5 years of his life. He didn't even
Wow.
know what sugar was. The sad thing is, you guys, the preschools and these preschools and stuff like that, and even in elementary, they're the
Yeah.
ones who introduce all the crap to these kids.
Yes, they do.
And I had a really interesting opportunity because Austin did not eat sugar and he didn't know what it was. So when they served all those yucky cakes with that icing on top and artificial colors, he wouldn't touch it. And they'd say, something's wrong with Austin. He's not eating any of the desserts. And I said, there's nothing wrong with my son. He's got really good taste. And I was a baker at the time, so he knew what good cake tasted like.
That's right.
But the interesting thing was he was a savory eater. So that's been his savior. He inherited my husband's father's taste buds, and I inherited my mother's taste buds, which is full of sugar and full of flour and full of, sweet
Simple
things
carbs.
and simple carbs. But the other thing I want to mention about that, you guys, is really important. And it just dawned on me again when I was writing my story, was that my mother breastfed me. Now, she was
Yeah.
extremely excited because I was the only one breastfed of the 3 girls. And she knew that that was actually supposed to be healthier. Well, it wasn't, because she was not. So then again, I got all of her breast milk, which there was some benefit, but she was toxic. And so Brenda and Giselle, my oldest sisters, they didn't have the same health issues I did. They were not breastfed. And I used to always feel bad for them. And I'm like, oh no, I'm the one who. So that was really interesting. Now, I did breastfeed Austin. And he was a healthy, ravenous eater. And, I would say I was very, very healthy when I was pregnant. Okay, so this is funny. I thought when I got pregnant, my face, because I've always had skin issues, I thought I was going to break out with acne. I was going to be this raging lunatic because I have a lot of emotional issues and I suffer from depression and anxiety. So, a lot of women go crazy when they're pregnant. I had the best pregnancy.
Yeah.
Ever. Felt absolutely fabulous. So I would say Austin, in that way, had a really good start to life because I was happy. I felt good, as opposed to my mother, who did not want another child. She was depressed her entire pregnancy. So not only did I end up with all of her toxins, I had a mother who didn't want me.
Energetically. Oh.
I've spent my entire life, if you know me, Lori, you do pretty well by now. I'm a helper and I'm a savior. And I'm in the right field of profession because I have such empathy for you. And I'm always the opposite is I'm trying to save you. And you have to be really careful with that because my mother didn't save me. So I spent my whole life trying to save people. And it's a good trait to have. At least I realized that. But that was kind of like what happened with me with my mom was we ended up being best friends. I mean, my mom and I had a great relationship, but the fact, you can imagine all that emotion of not being
Right.
wanted.
Right. So then that brings me to the next question. How do the toxins that you had, how do you think it affected you mentally?
Well, I
Tell us
alluded
about that journey because I was on part of that journey with you.
Yeah. So Lori got to know me about a time when I had another little mini crisis. So my first crisis was in my late 40s. 47 was when I had the come to Jesus moment that if I don't do anything about my health, I really thought I was going to get cancer. Because, 13 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, the worst that you could get was cancer. Everybody was like, oh my God, I don't want cancer.
And you know
I,
what? I just want to interject into something for the listeners. So, what Suzanne said is she was 47. So, that's basically just saying that it's never too late to start. It doesn't matter if you're 47 or 50 or 57. The thing that matters the most is that you start. So,
That's
go
right.
ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to
hallelujah.
chime that
Your
in.
body's amazing.
That's what your body is, a healing machine.
Oh,
if
yeah.
you if you give it the opportunity. The problem is people are so addicted that they don't give it the opportunity. So we have to get them they have to first understand why they're addicted, then they have to understand how to get off of the addictions, and then they have to just start appreciating their body for what it can do for you. What did you ask me? Now I've forgotten.
How did it play a role
Oh,
mentally?
mentally. Processed food
Oh,
addiction.
While
Yes.
you were talking about it, I'm gonna show some books because
oh,
that
I
is the
like that
case.
book.
Yeah, it's a great one. We'll come back to it. I wanna
Yeah, I want to
hear
come back to that.
Suzanne.
Yeah, and the processed food addiction, that's where my mom and I were, and,
Right.
it wasn't even I mean, thankfully, my mother baked a lot, so a lot of our things were homemade, but they were still flour and they were still sugar, which we know
Right.
is devastating to our immune system. So, and devastating to our immune system and our brains. I mean, for God's
Mhm.
sakes, they've already proven that sugar causes dementia and Alzheimer's, and it
Right.
totally regulates the brain. Y'all can talk deeper about that than
Super
I.
addicting on top of it.
Oh my goodness. I even do gluten-free healthy desserts. I'm just going to digress again a minute again, but I use coconut sugar and Lancanto sugar for some granola bars I was trying to make for Chris and my husband and my son who were on a trip. Well, of course they didn't take them all. So I was eating them, and you guys, it was like every hour, a couple hours, I was wanting to go get another one. So that
Mhm.
isn't even the heavily bad processed sugar. This was supposedly Lancanto is monk fruit, and it's supposed to have, doesn't spike your blood sugar and low glucose. Bullshit. I was starving for sugar. So it's that quick.
Interesting.
It's just that quick. And that's why I tell people, all the nutritionists I worked with in the last 10, 15 years just said, don't bring things into the house that is your poison, because poison calls your name. It's meant to, these harmful things. So the sugar was a big problem for me for my sluggish brain. So wrap this around your head, literally and figuratively. It was affecting my ability to function. So I poor memory. My mother and I both have poor memory. We had terrible teeth. The thing that it was doing was causing chronic fatigue, and I didn't even
Mhm.
know. So I spent my whole years. I only started getting chronic fatigue in high school. And that's when I had been already 12 years of being sick. Every year at flu season, I would get chronic flu.
Mm.
When I got into high school, it was mononucleosis, the kissing disease, because I had a lot of boyfriends and I was always smooching. My mother was like, "Oh my God, I got to lock those lips up. You're always getting it. You're always getting sick." But I was sick perpetually for decades. Now,
Mm.
nobody else in my family was. Now, isn't this weird? My mother had to hold me up while I was in elementary school. I had projectile vomiting. I'd get so sick for 2 weeks, and she kept me home an extra week to make sure that I was well enough to go back to school and not contagious. I mean, what parent is able to do that today? 3 weeks I was out of school. And she would have to hold me up, and she'd have to take me back to bed, barely able to walk because I was so weak. And so this happened every year throughout my school years. And so you can imagine what that did. I got behind in school and, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of it was, I'd probably say a lot of it as I got older was anxiety related,
Mm.
insecurities. I have a lot of like me doing a public speaking right now is definitely one of my most intimidating things. Now I've overcome that fear. I've got tools because I love to tell stories, but it was really hard for me to talk in public and to be vocal. So it really affected my ability to speak clearly, to be able to speak well. It really challenged me on the fact that I wasn't a very good student and I hung around with all very smart girls. So I always thought I was broken. So here's the biggest message here of all of this. I thought it was my fault. And now that I'm older, realize that this wasn't my fault. This is old toxins. I say it's not old age, it's old toxins. But this was decades of toxins that had built up in my body. And that's the culprit. And Lori, we've got so many people with mental health issues and they were committing suicide because
Right.
it's their fault.
We see it here in Utah. So Patty, I have a comment, and if you could just kind of comment on this. So she mentioned, and also too for our viewers. I mean, I had a sugar addiction. I hated food growing up as a child, but I love sugar. And even now, I mean, even being certified in amino acids, I still have to push myself away. But Patty, can you throw a comment out there on amino acids and sugar cravings? Because I know that's like a specialty, and I think it's important for our listeners.
Oh, definitely. I can really relate to your story, Suzanne, too, because I ended up as a young girl having sugar as well, too. But my story is a little different. And then I'm going to talk about the glutamine. I'm going to talk about the aminos. But I didn't have sugar till I was 10. Around then, that's when my father died. My father was a holistic chiropractor, so we grew up without it. And then all of a sudden, he was in an accident. And we're like, I went to sugar because that's what my sisters were feeding us. So I didn't get off that for roller coaster for a long time myself. But the aminos, so there is an amino called L-glutamine, which is really a great amino for catching that sugar craving immediately. For some people, they can put it in a little drink and drink it, and their sugar craving goes away. You also talked about it, the anxiety, and the anxiety is a lot around, and fibromyalgia too. A lot of the chronic pain is both a little bit about the low serotonin and also low endorphins. But the L-glutamine is a great amino for just catching that blood sugar. And many of us recommend that when someone has this intense sugar craving, we'll just like take, 1,000 or 2,000 milligrams. Well, I know I can't say a lot of that. Just take a little bit of how many? Just take a little bit of L-glutamine, which you can get mostly at any health food store. And that will just stop that sugar craving, sometimes immediately within a few seconds.
And Patty, I'll make a comment on there. I actually carry it with me at all times. And the reason that I carry it is not for the sugar cravings. But there are many times when I'm working like with clients that they'll go into low blood sugar. And so L-glutamine can help spike them like out of it. So I have a little container that I always carry it, and it's a powder. And the reason I like that is somebody like is about to pass out, low blood sugar, haven't eaten enough. It's something that you can easily just like throw in their mouth. And I'm not telling anybody on the show, obviously, go take a bunch of L-glutamine. You can send us an email at info@thewellnesscrusaders.com. And one of the holistic coaches will definitely respond. They are available to consult with, and you can get in depth more. But I love that. And
I love that too.
I wanted to make that known because there are so many times that people just don't know what to do.
Well, they go to sugar right away, right? They'll go to a candy or something quick.
And Leighton just threw up the email. So for those of you who are watching, info@thewellnesscrusaders.com. That's our email. So if you want to find out more information about that, we would be happy to share it. But thank you both for the answers and the comments. So then the next question, Suzanne, we know that you ended up making your journey to the Amen clinics, and I'm one of Dr. Amen's brain certified health coaches. And can you just tell us a little bit about that journey and what it clarified for you? That one, you made an important comment that it's not your fault. And sometimes I just think, we have some chemicals in our brain that just aren't balanced correctly. I know that Patty in the amino acid therapy class, it's like dopamine, which is your focus and your joy and your pleasure. If it's not balanced with serotonin, these are all chemicals in your brain. They're known as neurotransmitters. But when one goes up and the other goes down, that can cause an emotional roller coaster spiraling around. But I'll make the comment that when people try to go into their conventional medicine doctors, and not all conventional medicine doctors, by the way, but when they go in and somebody is diagnosing the brain who really has never had any medical training, and I'm not saying I've had the medical training, but I have 10 years of understanding SPECT imaging through Dr. Amons, they want to put them on an antidepressant.
Right.
Or they want to put them on an anxiety med because they want to label them and keep them in the sick care system. So what did the Amen clinics do for you, Suzanne?
Yeah. So if I can step back and mention that, how I got there was a couple of reasons. I was in my late 50s now. So it was 10 years later after my original diagnosis at 47, but the gluten sensitivity and, had to shift my whole way of thinking about food. I am a cyclist, and I had a head-on crash. Head-on crash. I had a head-on crash with somebody coming around a corner. Now, we were not going fast, but we missed it. We were trying to avoid each other. And of course, we went right into each other. And it was a man about 170 pounds. And I'm like 110, 15. And we crashed into each other pretty hard enough. And, that gave me, I saw stars spinning. I did not go get anything checked. I didn't go to see if I was having a concussion or anything. But we know you can hit your head on the corner of a cabinet in the kitchen and you can get a concussion. But that wasn't my first concussion. I had been through numerous car accidents that were rear-ended, and I broke the screen on the windscreen. You know how thick that is? I broke 2 with my forehead.
Wow.
Cracked them. And those were the days that we didn't go to the doctor. They didn't do anything for you. You didn't go to a chiropractor. You just really didn't do anything. I got up and walked away, so I was all right. But I started shortly after that incident having a lot of memory issues. I was feeling crazy. I couldn't remember things. I was just jittery and off. And then, Lori, on top of that, I had a skin rash that I'd had for 5 years that we could not figure out what was going on. I looked like a teenager on acne with my skin. So when I met Lori, this doctor was the one, Dr. Helena was the one who said, Suzanne, you've got a vaccine poisoning. She was trying to help me clear up my skin. She was trying to help me detox, and nothing was working. So fast forward, my brain's going frizzy. I'm feeling awful. I think I'm having early onset of dementia and Alzheimer's. And my son was also having some issues at the same time. And Lori, we were working together on that. And because he's had concussions as well and a terrible birthing experience. So his head's been traumatized. So we got into the Amen clinic, and both of us had our brains scanned and checked. Thank God for Lori, because I didn't know what to do. She heard my story. She said, I'm an Amen clinic coach. We'll get you there. So it was the best thing I ever did because it was more information. And my son too, it was more information. Now I will tell you, my husband was embarrassed that both of his wife and his child had to go get brain scans because their brains were messed up. So you've got this stigma around it. And I had to get so mad at him. I'm like, honey, it's just information. And why do you feel bad about it? He was feeling really awkward about it. And so we went and got this amazing information. But what was happening, that was a very stressful time in my life, because stress is what promotes breakdowns and causes a lot of anxiety in our bodies. I was having all this stress, and the doctor that I was seeing that was with Amen Clinic said, you don't have ADD, because I thought maybe I had ADD. People tell me I do. So I don't have ADD. I didn't have ADHD. I didn't have anything early onset of any of these dangerous diseases. And she said, but I don't understand why you're still so stressed out. You're not handling stress well. So she said, I'm going to do one more test on you. And she called it was it Lori Pyloria?
Yes, I was, yes.
Pylori, because and I thought she said H. pylori, and H. pylori, which we know is a bacteria in the gut. And I said, oh yeah, I've heard of H. pylori. I've been tested. She goes, no. This is something a little different, Suzanne. It's just a urine test. And she didn't really tell me a whole much about it. I didn't do much research on it. Get the test back, and the levels are 1 to 10. And if 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, it's a molecule that's in the body. Lori, I forget the name of it.
It's the pylori that's
the pyroluria molecule.
Yeah.
So my results were 22. They were so off the charts. And she said, "Oh my God, Suzanne." And I said, "Well, what is this? What does it mean?" And basically, what it means is when I'm under high stress, which I tend to get into because my nervous system is out of whack. Now that I know it's always been challenged with all these toxins in my body. And because nervous system is what these toxins attack. I don't know why. They love them and they attack your nervous system. And so, she just said, it was like an eye opener for me. And she said, "Well, there's a couple of things you can do for this." Oh, I started to tell what it was. So basically, when you are under high stress and you pee, this molecule attaches to your vitamin B. And is it zinc?
Zinc.
Zinc and vitamin B. It attaches to
B6.
those B6, which is
Mhm.
your brain needs to thrive and to be
Mhm.
healthy and to have all the things that the brain does, which is memory and recall and calm.
Mhm.
It attaches to the B6 and attaches to zinc and it excretes it out of your body.
That's
Now,
right.
when I learned that, I was like, "Oh my God, that's where all of the fatigue was coming from. That's where all of the mental health issues are coming from." So it was profound for me, kind of like you had vaccine poisoning. This was just as powerful because it told me why I've been this way. And again, it was another confirmation I was not broken.
Mm.
And unfortunately, Lori, do you remember the options she gave me?
Yes.
Yeah, it was go on medications. Now, she was a
Right.
functional medicine. She was a naturopath, and I was
Oh.
appalled that she told me to go on medication. That was one option. And the other, which because at that point, medication had ruined my gut for all these years. I was like, I'm not going back there. And the other option was to do a ketogenic diet. And
Mm.
to do a ketogenic diet, which was really harsh, I do a version of that. I mean, I'm simple carbs, I was doing a lot of protein at that time, and I still do. And by the way, protein's another thing you can do to mitigate sugar cravings. You're
Oh,
usually lacking in protein. So what I do is I have homemade crackers that I make, or just, crackers that are clean, and I'll go get a dip of nut butter. If I
Mhm.
need, my sweet is to
Oh
go
yeah,
get
I love that one.
and either carrots, sliced celery, something like that, just to give me that sweet. Almond butter, I used Ticini. My favorite right now is sesame butter. That's really good.
Mhm.
So anyway, that was just a really profound experience to know that, what this cause was. But the ketogenic diet was a little too harsh for me because I can't do high fat because I have the MTHFR gene, and methylation is
Mm.
hard for me. So all of these things, and Lori, oh my God, my biological dentist just told me an amazing thing. I don't know if you guys know this, and I'll tell you here if you don't. He was looking at my mouth and he said, "Let me see the bottom of your tongue." So I lifted up my tongue. Now, do you guys know what that little string thing is on the bottom of our tongue?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what? Mine is like a half an inch. He said the normal tongue that really impacts your nervous system and has so much to do with folate. Your mother, you were not developed properly in the womb and missing folate. That thing's supposed to be at least an inch longer, an inch or longer. And the way you test it is you put your tongue at the top of your lip, and you see if you have it, if it's pulling on it. If it hurts, then you have a compromised, it's called I was going to Google it, phenum or phlegm or some funny name. And mine was hurt so bad. It was like my legs that are so tight. And he said, "Guess what, Suzanne? That's what causes your entire system to be either in chronic pain all the time, like tight, like you're all, I'm like wound up like a I don't know what's wound up, not a rubber band, but just so my body's so
The top.
tight. Yeah,
Mm.
like I just always have to stretch because my fascia and all of my muscles, I'm very muscular, so it makes it really tight. Bingo. He said you didn't have proper folate developed in your body.
And I'll add to that, and then I have a question for Patty, not to cut you off because I want to go back to that story. So I was at the vitamin C conference thepureC.org or vcici.com.
Mhm.
It is one of the only vitamin C conferences in the US, and it's given by Lior Scher, who is the founder and also the founder of one of the only sodium ascorbate. So last conference in September, there is a really great biological dentist, Dr. Vladdy's out of Ohio, and he has done numerous surgeries on that little piece under the tongue because of that reason, because they lengthen it. And he actually showed us the video of how he did the surgery. And during the surgery, he uses the pure C, the vitamin C, before he stitches everything up to help in the healing process. And for those of you who
Wow.
want further information, the email again is info@thewellnesscrusaders.com. But Patty, you've been
Yes.
listening as well. So can you just make a comment? I mean, you do so much work in the whole stress, and I don't like the word anxiety. I always use anxious thoughts because we all have them. There's probably not one person out there who could ever say, I've never had an anxious thought. I think anxiety is a word that conventional medicine labels people with,
Yes.
and I see it so much in the teenagers where
Mhm.
they come around and they've been diagnosed with anxiety. They've been
Mhm.
labeled. So then it
Anxiety
kind of gives
disorder.
them, well, I can't do that. I have anxiety. No, you can do it. We together, even with Suzanne, we can help overcome that. But
Mhm.
talk a little bit about the stress, the anxiety, and
Okay.
amino acids, and then we'll go
Okay.
back to Suzanne's answer. And then
Okay.
Suzanne, I had the question. Uh, I would like for like our viewers, um, we'll bring up Suzanne's brain spect imaging so that we can talk a few minutes on this. Probably something a majority of our listeners have not seen before. So Patty, when you're done, I'll have Leighton bring it up when Patty comments on that. And before we go back to your story, Suzanne, we'll just bring it up for a quick minute and we'll just kind of explain that.
Sure.
Nice. Very nice. Well, and I hope we Leighton can bring up her book too, because it's a phenomenal book
Yes.
Thank you.
on poisons in the pantry. Thank you so much for writing that. And thank you for your story. And one of the things you said earlier, Suzanne, before I talk about the aminos that are connected to anxiety or anxious thoughts, is protein. Eating protein every 3 to 4 hours. And that's one of the things we recommend from the Academy for Addiction and Mental Health Nutrition. Those of us who are certified through there is get in that protein every 3 to 4 hours. And again, that protein that works for you, right? Because not everybody can eat the same kind of protein. So that's a little bit more about personalization. So that's a great recommendation and something we recommend a lot too. So one of the anxious thoughts really are connected to our serotonin, right? That's our neurotransmitter that helps us feel kind of calm. I mean, GABA's in there too. So, we have GABA is also a neurotransmitter that I'm actually thinking when you were talking about your tight muscles, I'm like, oh, we need to get her onto, I don't know if you know about Dr. Amen's GABA formula. Lori can talk about that, but that's a great formula for especially the tight muscles and feeling stressed. But the obsessive thoughts, the anxiety, the obsessive thoughts, inability to sleep. We were talking about suicide earlier. That is low serotonin. And so when we're low in that, we are going to have anxious thoughts. We're going to feel overwhelmed. We're going to feel like we can't cope, right? So the aminos that we recommend for that are 5-HTP and tryptophan. And of course, protein, making sure people get their protein in and their good fats. But it is so evident that our serotonin in our society right now, and Julia Ross calls it, we're in a bad mood epidemic, right? And she wrote The Mood Cure and the other cure. And part of that I just want to share about the anxiety is we're so dopamine driven, right? We're so busy, we're going, and that's that stress response. So we
Fight or
keep
flight.
going, fight or flight. We keep going, we keep moving, and we're spiking our dopamine, and then we're dropping it, but we're also dropping our serotonin at the same time, because dopamine and serotonin seesaw each other. So
Right.
we need moments. And Jessica, another crusader of ours, talks a lot about, and we do as well too, just calming down using breath, meditation, like to reset our energy stores. And food is the foundation, because if we're not feeding our brain, we're not getting those neurotransmitters fed and balanced.
Well, and fabulous. GabaCalm and tryptophan used to be my favorite go-to supplement,
Oh,
and
nice.
now I've got my brain balanced. I mean, I'm on a roll now. I feel so, and I got a lot of those toxins out, which
Oh, right on.
we can talk about that another time. But one of the things I did want to mention about the food is that all of this anxiousness, all of this aggravation that we have, and all the stress, it's all prompted by the food you're eating.
Absolutely.
Can definitely you can correlate it. Just correlate it. Take that food out and you're like, "Oh my God, my brain's not doing that anymore." And alcohol is probably the worst. I don't drink that much alcohol anymore, and I never have been good. I've never been a good what is it? Not processor. What do you call it? Where you
Methylator of the
methylator.
alcohol.
Well, like methylate. Okay. So
Right.
alcohol, for instance, and caffeine loves to hang on to me. So if I have alcohol, I can have poisoning for several days because it doesn't want to go
So
anywhere.
you probably have a gene that you've inherited from your parents that doesn't allow you to eliminate that caffeine. So
Right.
you hold on to it. I have that same gene
Alcohol.
on caffeine.
Well, my father, bless his heart, he's 100 now, and
Wow.
he
I
could not.
know.
I know, and I just did a talk I'll have to share with you guys on an interview, not interview, but about his story. But he said he couldn't drink. Alcohol runs in my both sides of the family, unfortunately. And he said that if he drank alcohol, he wanted to go hurt somebody. And he kept off of alcohol. That was my dad. He's 100 years old, not because he makes good decisions, but he said alcohol makes me crazy. And I'm going, oh my God, do we not? And at least he recognized that.
Yes.
So I have to be careful. I hold on to those chemicals in my body.
Yes.
We know now why, because I've got methylation issues, and I also have my lymphatic system has been polluted.
Right.
With all those toxins, it's just like, unplugging a clogged up sink or a toilet. You've got to clean it out.
Right.
Clean it out, sister.
Right.
A healthy cell has to be well, and
That's right.
those cells get polluted, and then they become dormant. This is my whole education I'm doing right now. When your cell becomes dormant, then you start aging prematurely. You start having all these health issues prematurely. And now we have all these great tools in our toolkit. Thank God for tools in my toolkit. Thank God.
And you know what? With that, I'm just going to add info@thewellnesscrusaders.com, because we are willing to help you with these tools. There are so many times you're not going to hear it in the conventional medicine. And again, I don't mean all conventional medicines, but some of the tools that we use, they're not going to mention. Why? Because there's no money to be made in tools, in vitamin C and vitamin D and vitamin A and glutathione or any of these things. There's no money in it for big pharma. So it's not going to be something that you can go out there and you're going to do some research on, because you'd be fit to tide to find anything on N-acetylcysteine. But I don't want to go off on a tangent on that. Leighton, can you bring Suzanne's brain spec, and then I will just briefly go through it. So our listeners who are out there that are actually watching this, when Suzanne got to the Amen Clinic, this was her brain spec, and I'll just kind of explain this. So this right here is the top part of your brain known as the prefrontal cortex. This is where your focus, your ability to stay on task, your ability to be organized, your ability to pay attention. And that is really important, because we look at the children out there suffering in the hands of big pharma, in the hands of sick food. When you can't get these amino acids from the protein foods, things like the tryptophan, things like L-dopa that have to come from protein foods, because your body cannot make amino acids. What happens is the blood flow in the brain suffers. And you can see here in Suzanne's brain that it's kind of lit up like what I call the Christmas tree. So the blue is the average blood flow in the brain. And the white in the compartments, and if you think of the brain like a dresser drawer, let's say you have 3 dresser drawers, one for socks, one for shirts, one for pants, and you have your sock drawer that is empty, and you're overstuffing your shirt drawer and overstuffing your pants drawer, but you never go back to fill the socks up. Guess what? You still have an empty sock drawer. You can't get a pair of socks. And our brain is very compartmentalized. It has these chemicals known as neurotransmitters that we have to get from amino acids that we have to get from our food, but our food is so sick because the soil is dirt because of the herbicides and pesticides. And I wish Kathleen, our other co-host friend, was on here because that is her specialty. The soil is sick. So now the nutrients are not there. It's not like a carrot was probably when my great grandfather or my grandfather had the carrots, because it doesn't have, there's no nutrients in it. So what ends up happening is you have empty dresser drawers and they show up on a brain spec as the red in the white. And basically what that is that your brain is on fire.
Mhm.
And when your brain is on fire, you have to feed it what it needs. You have to feed it the amino acids. And I know we've been talking about tryptophan and 5-HTP and GABA and things like that, but those are actually food. They come from amino acids, which actually come from foods. But
Yep.
now we have these vegans and these vegetarians, and they're not getting enough of some of the amino acids. And then we see these anxious thoughts, these sad thoughts, these overwhelmed thoughts. And again, they go into their doctor and the first thing they want to do is put them on an antidepressant or put them on a depression medicine, which I think, Suzanne, going back to getting you to finish on your comments, you were there with doctors wanting to put you on medicine opposed to treating what the root cause is. And that's a lack of nutrient dense foods and the lack of amino acids that we're not seeing in these foods that are grown in this sick soil.
Well, and also it's lifestyle choices. I mean,
Yep.
I meditate every morning. I exercise regularly. I have to keep my stress levels down. This is one of the things when my husband's being a pistol, I'm like, hey. And my son, I'm like, your mother needs lots of calm and lots of love and attention, and basically no stress in the house. It's very important to keep that balance and
Yes.
have conversations that are very supportive and not, conflicting.
Mhm.
And when they told me I've had several. There was in my story, I talked about how in my 45, when I went in and I started having issues and I was telling the doctor something's wrong with me. And she wasn't even, this is conventional doctor. She didn't even say I was in perimenopause. And I was clearly in perimenopause because I was raging hot flashes. I had emotional issues up the wazoo and I was exhausted. And there
Mhm.
was no mention of that, but she wanted to put me on some antidepressants to take the edge off. And one of the things that happened, you guys, was there was a weak moment where I was so desperate. And I remember my husband was with me and he goes, you really should do this. Just do it for a short time. So I
Mhm.
started on an antidepressant. And at the same time, I had just started a new spiritual center. I'd found a
Mm.
place where I could go and connect with the divine. So I wasn't there very long, but they did courses on learning how to foundation classes about how the principles were for having an optimal life with the divine, blah blah blah. Well, I started to take it, and I told the teacher, the minister, I said, I don't know how I'm going to be able to do on this. I'm really not doing well. And she said, honey, we're just going to take this 1 week at a time. Well, you guys, 2 weeks in, I'd found my place I needed to be. I stopped that antidepressant so quickly, and it just confirmed that I had lost touch with my spiritual connection. And we need something bigger than ourselves. If you're stuck in your head all the time and you think that's all there is, well, then you are going to go crazy because that isn't all there is.
Agreed on that. And that's
And
stuff too that like Patty teaches, but
Mhm.
that's that stuff like if they could just teach more of that,
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and if they could start teaching it in schools, and, you know, I love what Jessica, one of our other co-hosts, does. I mean, she teaches her granddaughter how to like meditate, and really, she actually sent me a video that I've been working with my own granddaughter on. And if they could just start teaching that in
Mhm.
schools, I mean,
Mhm.
Well,
they have some of these nonsense classes.
Well,
Mhm.
you guys, a lot of it is starting with a stubborn kind of a staunch position that if it is spiritual, not ever you're enforcing religion on somebody. And it's like, oh, come on. It's not about that at all. And another point is if it works and it calms us down and it makes us a more loving, a more
Mhm.
helpful, a more supportive community, how can you fight that? No pun
Well,
intended. That's the
that-
wrong word to use. But how can you resist that? And that's, I think, this point is we get into semantics that when you talk about spirituality, when you talk about religion, when you talk about what works for you and your spiritual divine, what makes you heart centered instead of head centered, if
well,
people could see the difference, that it is so profound what it would do for our society. And I
right.
want, and I weave that in. People may not be spiritual when they work with me, but they're going to hear what is working for me and why. And
Right.
then get them to say, okay, I'll try it. What do you have to lose? But
Mhm.
Lori, I mean, Lori, I could go on. I wish that we all lived together because we'd be hitting all the schools right now.
Yeah. Patty, you were going to make a
Me-
comment?
Well, I was just going to say that meditation and breath and de-stressing is a spiritual experience, right? It's all about coming back to that place of self-love and care for self. And we need that. We need that, but we also need to be able to feed the brain so we can connect with that. Because it's really hard to connect with that when our brains are starving. And that's why giving
Yes.
people hope that yes, there's pesticides in the foods, but there's also great food that doesn't have pesticides. That's our choices. And that's what your book is about. And that's what we're promoting. We're promoting hope and solutions. Like you can feel amazing at any age when you start eating better and caring for yourself and caring for your community and supporting the regenerative farmers. Go to the farmers market. I say to some of my students, I'm like, spend money on your food, maybe less on your clothes, go to the secondhand shop, but buy your food so you're feeding your brain and your soul.
Well,
Right.
you know that expression when people say that they can't afford organics. I get into discussions about poor people can't afford organics and we're privileged. And I look at them and I'm like, have you priced cancer lately? Have you priced chronic illnesses? People are in pain and hurting for a
I
reason.
know.
Does it mean that they just have to keep eating this crap and this cheap stuff and they keep getting sick? Is that what we give these
Well,
people? Is that what the options are?
it's the food that keeps them in the addicted, like sick
Right,
cures. You
right,
know,
Yes, but
and
that's what makes money. We just talked about it. Being well does not make money. And
right.
what these my whole poisons in the pantry book is about profit over people. We are
And we
not.
have that up on the screen. So
Thank
for our
you.
viewers, it's there on the screen. And Suzanne's going to talk about how you can get that. So
mm,
Suzanne, the SPECT image it was a tool that
Yes.
allowed you to see how your brain was functioning and what you could do about it by feeding good, clean food. And,
mm,
I just want to put out there that there are good, clean, like foods that aren't organic. If you go to the Environmental Working Group,
mhm,
ewg.org, you
mhm.
could eat off of the Clean 15. So if you can't
Green
afford
15.
an organic strawberry, eat something that you can eat on the conventional, or find, like Patty was saying, the farmer's market. I mean, Costco, and there's nothing in this for me. Costco supplies a lot of really good organic foods at low cost. If you
Yes.
have an Aldi's grocery store, I don't know what other grocery stores are, out by you, Suzanne, but there are more cost-effective grocery stores that are also carrying organics.
Well,
So,
they're now competing, so the
yes.
prices have dropped considerably,
That's
and some
right.
even I don't like Amazon buying Whole Foods, but they really have gotten competitive with their pricing. But you guys, grow your own food for God's sakes.
I'm
All
a
you
horrible gardener, though.
No, you're not a horrible gardener. You just don't realize how a good gardener you are until you try. But I mean, I grow collard greens, and my father, who's 100 years old, made us work and labor in his garden when I was
Favorite green.
and I hated working in that garden. And it is the best gift he ever gave me because I have collard greens growing out the wazoo. The green foods grow beautifully. And you just do wine barrels or containers, tomatoes, greens, salads, arugula, you name it. And your herbs are the easiest thing in the world.
Mhm.
And let me just tell you, I mean, we could do a whole thing on herbs only,
Yeah.
but have you guys heard, this is really important. Have you guys heard of the term, it's called acrylamide. Have you heard of that term before? Because I just learned this from
I have.
colleague. So basically what it is it's like a polymer that turns into like a plastic-like product, and it's put in paper products. Well, this new thing's come out that we all know industrial seed oils are so bad. Now that's what this is. Everybody said, what is the one poison you'd have move out of the pantry if I had to just do one? It's
Perfect.
industrial seed oils. That's what this is all about. And I always give you solutions. I am not I'm not going to do what my doctors did to me when I started out, where they just said, take it all out, but they don't give you options.
You
And
need
then
options.
they didn't tell you why. I need to know why, and I need to know what I'm doing. So anyway, the industrial seed oils, we know that when they're what's in all of the fast food, they're what your restaurants are using. So you're being inundated with this toxin in your body that's causing cardiovascular issues. Now, Kate Shanahan, who is my author of my book and what I've done so much of, she's just phenomenal. You can Google Kate Shanahan. She's amazing.
It's deep nutrition for those of you that are looking, because it's not
backwards.
Yeah,
you're okay. Supposed to do? I think I'm supposed to do that on my computer. So anyway, her whole thing was a lot of people that passed away in the last 4 years. If you check their blood and check their vitals, they were full of industrial seed oils. They were just plugged up with industrial seed oils because most of them were obese.
What are some of those industrial seed oils? Just throw a few handfuls.
Well, the biggest one that everybody thinks is safe is sunflower oil. And sunflower oil is not safe. It is processed no different than canola. It's processed no different than safflower.
What about organic sunflower?
No, it's not. It's not the fact. And this is another thing. Oh my God, I could just get so upset about this. Organic sugar. Does that mean that it's healthy for you? No. And people will look at a label and they'll see that it's organic, and it still has wheat in it. It still has sugar in it. It still has carrageenan in it. It still has, yada, yada. And I'm like, sorry, it's still bad. But the oils are really the problem that I was starting to talk about, this acrylamide. So when you fry your food, and all the fast foods are frying their foods, we love French fries. Who doesn't? Now it's even the potatoes that you roast in the oven. It's broiling, grilling, and barbecuing. That when you put those oils on this food, it literally at high heat, and when it gets crunchy and all that delicious flavor, that's acrylamide, and it literally turns into a form of plastic. And it's not plastic that we eat in general. We're already full of plastic. Umbilical cords have it. Babies have it in their umbilical cords already today. So it's really toxic. And so we love all of that. Just don't eat that every night, which is what I did, was roast all my vegetables and thought I was doing a good thing. So, and even in the olive oil, the whole thing is olive oil, avocado oil, ghee butter, even like I've been using lard, and I also like tallow. Tallow's meat, it's meat. What is it? Animal product. Those are all good good products for high heat. But really, you want to basically steam things, get them cooked, and then you drizzle your good oils on, and then you put your little bit of butters on. That's the way we should be eating. But this new acrylamide thing's quite scary because all of your crackers, your potato chips, all of the things that we love to snack on are just toxins. And so be mindful. And it is something that I've had to wake up to, and I'm really sad about it because my husband makes the best roast potatoes you've ever tasted. And I'm like, oh, so that's just a new ingredient that I just added to my ebook, that the one you will get, Lori. I've done some revisions. This is my ebook that is it's $19.99. And it's now 16 pages. It's going to be 20 pages, just over 20 pages, because I added some really good things on there that people gave me feedback on about what do I do when I eat out at a restaurant? What kind of things do I talk to the waiter about? What do I do when I travel? I travel all over the world. I have to be prepared. And so I give tips like that. And then I tell you how to purge your pantry so it's not so overwhelming.
Okay. And I want to do a shout out. And Suzanne, you've been to this restaurant, Rawtopia. In Salt Lake. and Mill Creek area. So it's Rawtopia. And we've all eaten there. And we ate there with Robert Scott Bell. And when we were at the Be Healthy Utah event, definitely the best food. Gluten-free, organic, no seed oil. And for those of you that love sweet potato fries like me, I have to tell you, I've never had a better sweet potato fry besides for Rawtopia. I had to throw that out there because you were making me
Well,
hungry.
but isn't it going to be, it's still fried though. How are they cooking
Yeah,
it?
They
but there's
bake.
some stuff we can still fry. I don't think
Yeah,
everybody.
I think the main thing is we used to say moderation. I don't even say that anymore. I just say if you've got this craving for something, just don't eat it very often. And
Right.
moderation means you can do it once a week. And it's like, no, just do it. You got to pay. And it depends on your health.
Right.
You really got to pay
Depends
attention.
on your metabolic rate too, like how you break things down and what you digest.
Yeah.
And have you guys heard, a doctor in Hawaii a couple years ago told me that the way to mitigate these bad seed oils and oils in our body is to take vitamin E oil. Have you heard of that? Seems like an oil combating an oil, but she gave me a special, full script carries it, and it's a very expensive but very good quality vitamin E oil. It's called Falls or something like that. I can tell you guys about it later. But basically, she would say when you go out to eat, I take these with me, and when I have a French fry or I'm eating rest foods that I don't know what it is, you eat those as like a supplement, and it will help mitigate the damage. I don't know if you'd heard of that.
I know.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, I take it. I have them in my supplements. I feed them to my son and my husband when we're eating out, and they're like, "Oh, great, here she goes again." But I think that we want to enjoy our lives. Don't forget, we do not want to get strung out about food being harmful, because we do need to eat we need to eat, and we're doing okay. And I've proved that if I can get my toxins cleaned up and get things cleared out, and eat well, I'm thriving. You guys, I'm better at 60 than I ever was at 40.
And I think that, we all have to do the best we can. We can't live in
Right.
this bubble. We
Right.
can't be afraid to eat out, although there's only a few restaurants that I will eat out at, even here in Heber.
Know
The
your
only
restaurants.
Oh yeah, it's Mountain Meals Wellness Bar for me out here. I don't
Yep.
venture into, I may go into the restaurant, but you're never going to find a plate of food in front of my face there.
Yes.
And I think that's the hardest thing, because socially, people want to go to a restaurant to eat out. And we just don't know what's like in the food. And
Right.
it's sad that we're living in this time and place. And, it goes back to, there's a lot of people who are a tad bit older like myself, and I have other clients, and they're like, oh, well, I ate that like back in the 1960s or 70s. Food wasn't as poisonous back then. We didn't have hundreds of herbicides and pesticides.
Right.
Yeah, they may have been spraying some herbicides, but they weren't spraying as much as they are right now. And the soil is it's dirt. I mean, they've ruined that. And I so wish Kathleen was on that for that comment. But
And don't forget about the environment. Our environment,
my
our air.
gosh, I
We're
mean,
breathing, acrylic. What was it? I had what is aluminum in my head, because I did something that pulled the aluminum out. That's where my skin all broke out. And I did an aluminum detox, and it cleared my skin up. So aluminum's getting into the brain, but it's in the air you breathe.
Well, it's in all the planes. It's in all the stuff that they're like polluting the air with, that people don't even know about. They see all these streaks in the air and they're like, oh, doesn't it look cool? They made an X in the sky. No, it's poison. And it's falling onto the ground where our children are playing.
Yeah.
And so we just need to be a little cognizant of that. But you know what? Let me ask.
But also give people hope, because this is where the food comes in. I mean, we're here to give people solutions and hope. And so that's part of what we're doing, right?
And
eat
that's
more
why
leafy greens, feed your brain. You're happier. When you're happier, your body digests things. So, there's a lot of hope out there, but we have to make lifestyle choices. And that's one of the biggest things for people. They're like, well, I just want to keep eating like this. So that's what they get to do. And they get to also experience more illness. And we all know from what we've experienced that you can feel better and that you can be healthy when you make different lifestyle choices. So that's what we're hoping. And thank you, Suzanne, for your book.
And
Hallelujah. Thank you. Yeah.
And the farmer's market is a really
Yeah.
good place to buy your produce. Why? Because you can introduce the person
Oh,
who actually is growing the produce. How do
yes.
you do it? What are you treating it with to keep the weeds down? And then you have informed consent, which we rarely have informed consent
Uh-huh.
in the United States, let
Uh-huh.
alone Utah. But then you have the informed consent. Like, listen, if there's somebody that has a booth out there and they're not spraying herbicides and pesticides, and this farmer is using herbicides and pesticides, well, hey, maybe I'm going to go choose booth B instead of booth A. But
There's a
at
lot of them.
least,
The regenerative farmers are at the markets
yes,
now. It's exciting
yeah,
to see.
Yeah,
right.
and wash your the other thing I've started doing is just really do a good washing. I bought a product that was supposed to be from Trader Joe's. It was supposed to be a cleansing vegetable thing. Well, it had a freaking residue on it, and I found out it had an industrial seed oil in it. I was
Yeah.
like, you gotta be kidding. Toss that baby. But anyway, I just do a little clean soapy water. I love Bonner's products. They smell good too. And you not worry about ingesting this stuff. Anyway, wash your stuff, just get it nice and clean. And even if it's not organic, and try not to buy non-GMO. There's lots of products doing non-GMO, and really stay out of the middle of the grocery store aisles. That's where that's where your harm is. Stay on the perimeter. Fresh meat, fresh fish, and complex carbs. You get the vegetables that have some substance to them, and really just that's the whole thing about my ingredient book. There is so many things out there now. Thank God that when I was diagnosed with these health issues 13 years ago, we just didn't have the selection, and it was
Yeah.
super hard. Restaurants now, gluten-free everything. You can mix the dairy out. I tell people you can ask your restaurant. They don't announce this, but you can say, "What are you cooking in?" And they'll probably tell
That's
you
right.
rice bran oil because they think that's good. It's not. But you'll say, "Do you mind cooking in olive oil?" And they'll say yes. And they don't. They kind of whisper it, yes, because it's
Yeah.
expensive. But they'll cook in olive oil, and then your salad dressings are all full of toxins unless they're homemade.
Yeah.
And
It's easy to make a salad dressing.
you can just have oil and vinegar come to the table,
Yeah.
or lemon juice and oil.
Right.
There's I talk about that in my bigger book. I give those tips. And I really think a big part of it is once you do this, it's so liberating, everybody,
You
because
feel good. You
not
feel
only that,
good.
you don't even have to know what those ingredients are anymore. You just put the package back down and you go
That's
find
right.
someone that doesn't have it. It's like, yay! I don't even have to wonder what I can and can't eat. So it's really been transformative for my community using these ingredient lists, and it creates independence, and it keeps you. My slogan is, I want you out of your doctor's office and in your kitchens where healthy begins.
Right on.
That's great. And you know what? You mentioned a word, and I want to just put a little blurb out there because so many people really don't understand GMOs. So,
Mhm.
GMOs are genetically modified organisms. And basically, what it is they're the seeds that are growing the produce that uh, has been modified with an ingredient like Roundup, which is an herbicide that can be cancer causing. And what they do is they genetically modify these seeds so that they can grow this produce. And I'll use wheat as an example in bread, but they're growing this so that when farmers who are using Roundup, 2,4-D, glufosinate, honestly, whatever sometimes a state is providing. And we just did an interview on that a couple weeks ago with somebody who lives in Nephi, who is spraying a lot of herbicides and pesticides. But you can spray these herbicides and pesticides on the produce, the wheat, and it won't kill the wheat, but it will kill the weeds. And basically, that is a genetically modified. So the first inexpensive step you can do, read the labels. Suzanne, I'll leave that to you on this next question, but don't buy anything that says genetically modified organisms, and you will start seeing that on the table. At least take one more step and buy non-GMO, because it's a better step than not being able to take a step at all. But Suzanne, I want to ask you this last question because we're going to be running into Q&A, and Leighton's going to put the phone number up, and will say the phone number for the people who are listening, but they can't see it. So, and then I want to go into you and kind of Patty talking about the poisons in the pantry, but talk a little bit about your book. So the last question that I have for you is, what do you tell your clients about the importance of, one, getting the toxic burden load out of their body, and then two, how to go about changing their diets that are harming them when they're on a limited budget?
Mm.
Wow. So, I grew up on a limited budget in my household at home, and my dad had a garden. So that was a big one right there, was trying to grow your own foods. And I know it's
Yes.
hard if you're in apartments and you can't, but go find a community garden.
Right.
Be part of the leadership in your community and create that.
Mhm.
So you're talking about on a limited budget. I'm going to tell you, those foods that you think are cheap for a reason, because they're zombie foods. So if you want to be a zombie, keep eating them, because
I love that.
they're messing up your brain and your gut and your brain. So if you want to get diseases and you really just don't care about your body, keep eating that stuff. But when you price out the harm that they're causing you, then you
Mhm.
can start to look at what is a little bit more expensive. And you're
Mhm.
going to say, oh, I get it, because this is real foods. It has 4 ingredients in this
Mhm.
package. It has olive oil, it has
Mhm.
potatoes, has a little bit of salt, and it's organic. Boom. That's all you need. But when you
Mhm.
go look at all those other things, know that it's chemicals you're eating. It's not real food. So
Mhm.
I do express a lot of gratitude to people that say, well, I'm trying to do the best I can. And to be able to say, I know you want to, but it's so important to not support those companies making that shit, because it's shit. And it's also
Pretty much.
messing up our environment. Think of the resources, you guys, that goes into making crap food. Oh my God.
I know.
I get so upset. You can see with me, I just want to scream. Sodas take 3 gallons. I think 1 can of Coke takes 2 gallons of good, free, clean, fresh water to make, just so
Ugh.
it can pollute you. So vote with your dollar in the
That's
grocery
right.
store. Vote with your dollar, because here's the big message. If you quit buying that stuff, it's going to go away, and then all the good stuff is going to come out, and
That's right.
everybody's going to compete, and the
Supply and
price is
demand.
going to go down. The price is going to go down. And we're already seeing that happen right now. So kudos to those companies doing good work. We need to support them. Those products, those companies, love them up, because they're what's making the change that Lori and Patty,
Yep.
Kathleen, and all of us really care so much about you, that we really, really, really want all of us to be on the same wellness wagon here. And so,
And
Lori,
some of the information that you're talking about, Suzanne, I mean, some of the information, some of this is free. Like,
oh,
Suzanne's got a
wonderful.
free ebook,
Mhm.
what I'm going to let
Mhm.
you and Patty kind of talk about, but some of this is free.
Mhm.
Plus, you can email us.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, it's
we're
not
gonna, hey
difficult.
Leighton, can you put that phone number up? I'm just gonna say the phone number. The call-in number for those who aren't watching and you want the number to call in and ask us and Suzanne questions is 385-899-2134. Again, 385-899-2134. We will open it up for calls here in just a few minutes. Leighton will put you into the queue, but Suzanne, talk a little bit more about your book, and then I just want you and Patty, like, it's right in both of your wheelhouses. So I'm going to
Yes,
mute
it
out
is.
on this and just kind of listen in to the both of you.
Okay.
Well, Patty, why don't you start?
Okay. Well, I just wanted to comment on the zombie thing.
Don't you love that?
Because really what we want to do, what we're trying to do, is to help you thrive, right? This isn't about surviving. A lot of us have lived in survival, and a lot of us didn't know. I didn't know what I was feeding my kids when they were little was harming them. I had no clue, because it's not taught in the schools, right? So the systemic issue is, we need education. We're educators here.
Right.
We're trying to, and it is growing, which is exciting, right? That we're
Yeah.
supporting. That's exciting. So we want people to thrive. This is about thriving and not being a zombie, and making the connections that your well-being, your mental well-being, your physical well-being is all connected to what you're putting in your mouth. Yes, it has to do with trauma too. Of course, we need therapy and we need to look at those other pieces, what's in our environment. But as we start putting things that are real food into our mouth, we start feeling better. Our brain starts working again. You're like, wow, I
Right.
can do this. I can do it. I'm not lost in the shuffle of I'm giving up because I'm not, I can't find the energy anymore. So I'm excited. Thank you for your work. And I wanted to read something from the Pantry Principle, which is another fantastic book by Mira Desi. And she has a short little questionnaire in here that I'm going to read to you all. It's very short. Read the ingredients, okay? So here we go. So for our listeners who are listening, and here are some questions to consider when you're looking at a product. Do you have to look it up? Number one. Number two, does it have a number? So look at the ingredients. Does it have a number? Does it have 4 or more syllables? Is it unpronounceable? Does it have ATE at the end of it? Is it enriched? There's another one.
What is ATE?
What is that?
Glyphosate, it ends at ATE.
Oh,
Like glyphosate ends in ATE.
ATE.
it does.
But
I've never
the
noticed
food
that
companies
before.
can get away with that. They don't have to put it on there. They just have to end with it. So we don't know
Oh.
that,
Yeah,
Yep.
I didn't know that.
right? And then the last one, is it all capital letters, not words? So as Mira Desi says here in the Pantry Principle, if you answered yes to any of these, don't eat it. So this is us just getting more information about, oh, okay. And us, again, looking at the foods that are actually feeding our brains and helping us get to that place of caring for our bodies, our communities, and our earth. And we can't do that if we're not eating well.
Right. We have to support our brains because that's where the decisions and the choices come from.
Absolutely.
And you unpack, there's so much to unpack there. But one of the other things I want to mention about this whole thing that some people think is conspiracies when we say that the government's trying to kill us or the big medicine doesn't care, all that stuff. Well, all you have to do is look around. 80% of the population are obese.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably say a majority of the population can barely go up a flight of stairs.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't designed coincidentally. This food is created to addict you and to make you come back for more and keep you this vicious cycle of being sick.
So, Suzanne, before you go any further, because you were just talking about obesity, I just want to, and this is a topic for another conversation, and this is a really good email question to us. The new weight loss medication, Ozempic.
Oh my
So Ozempic is made in the EU by a company called Nova Force, I think. It is not FDA approved in the EU. And do you know who the biggest purchaser is of this medicine? It's the United States. And that every dose that somebody has to get it in an injection of is going to cost to the insurance company, to the community, to whoever, you could be low income, Medicare, Medicaid, whatever, $20,000 per injection. They're not selling it in EU because the FDA won't approve it, but the FDA just approved it in the United States.
Bingo.
And guess who's
there
the
are
biggest?
already lawsuits coming across because of the gastrointestinal issues that these people are having it. Instead of going back to what you and Patty have been talking about, root cause, sick food, sick soil, they're just saying, go on this medicine for the rest of your life. And they are capturing the attention of these teenagers. It's sickening.
Well, it's masking tape, and it's also given approval to being overweight. And they're basically this fat shaming and this whole issue about can't call people people that, it's very degrading. And what's so sad to me is it's degrading that we're allowing these unwell people to think it's okay.
Yeah, they're taking advantage of them.
Absolutely. It's all marketing. It's all, again, profits over people. But you guys, the one person that is responsible for this is Miss Oprah Winfrey. Now, she needs to be boycotted because her following is so huge, no pun intended, her following is so huge. And that is the reason why it's accepted here in the States. She's got so much weight. God, I'm putting some puns in there right and left. She's got so much weight on things that they're letting her do what she wants. And she's invested in this company, you guys.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yes,
she is.
She's the biggest investor, and she's the one promoting it. Now that is the fox guarding the hen house, if I've ever heard. And the problem is she's setting up a disaster waiting to happen. Now, if you look at
it hurts my heart.
No, and I just, me too. I always wanted to be on her show, and I'm like, sorry, Oprah, if you call me on your show, I'm not coming. And
neither am I.
Yeah,
Patty, what about you?
No. I'm so mad at her right now. So I'm going to write her a letter.
But all it's giving is it's giving. Okay, this is where that chain of events happen. Here comes this product. All you have to do is take it. Bring on the potato chips, bring on the sodas, bring on the donuts, bring on all that stuff because it's giving them carte blanche to be able to eat it. Now it's only going to make them sicker. And then it means that they're just going to be a medical, another excuse for, all these medical costs going as high as they are. People like us that take care of ourselves, we won't even be able to get care if we, heaven forbid, have an accident or we need something extreme because there's going to be the hospitals are going to be booked. We saw it with the pandemic. They're going to be booked with people that have made choices because they're addicted and they just are unwell. And it's it's not their fault. I'm not blaming or shaming anybody. I'm saying that shame on these corporations that are choosing to do this to us. And that's what we're all about as Wellness Crusaders is we have to stop this madness. Are you with us or not? Because you're going to go down. You're going to go down because you cannot live in this environment where you're in with your body that polluted.
Nope.
And we three stand here with having health issues of our own in the past. We know the difference between what that was like and what it's like now. And let me tell you, it is so much better emotionally, physically. And, I just really think that our brains have got to be protected. And think about it, you guys. If we don't have a brain, we are sheep. We are just sheep walking around with our head in the sand, being told what to do. And that's where this is all leading, you guys. And that's why we have a revolution going on right now.
We do.
We have a revolution that's saying, I'm not, those of us that are awake and listening are saying, we're not doing this anymore. And we're here to help you. We're here to help you. We're evangelists.
We love you. I know.
And I have a text question. They didn't want to call in. It's Suzanne, it's for you. One is they want to know how to get your ebook that you've been talking about.
Thank you. So, I just created I have an all new, Laura, you haven't even seen it yet, a website called secretstoroadianthealth.com. It's to kick off the old block from my summit and secretstoroadianthealth.com. And it's just like it's spelled. If you go on there, there is some information, all kinds of information. But if you scroll down, my free ebook to get the guide is right there. And you click on it. All you do is sign up and give me your email address. And buried in that ebook, I want you to have the first one because the freebie is not the same information that I put in the ebook. And so get the freebie, it's 4 pages. And then you have the option inside there to upgrade to the $19.99 ebook. But I've got it on sale right now. For those of you who join and get the freebie, you'll get this for $9.99.
And my gosh.
I just improved it. I mean, there's so much information in there and I've got a VA working with me and I'm so happy. It looks beautiful, but we've got some really good tips in there that help you when you go to the restaurant, like I said, when you go to when you want to go, when you want to go, when you're traveling and helping you purge your pantry. But thank you so much for your interest.
I mean, $10, that's like nothing. And I'm not saying that, obviously for somebody that's making minimum wage, but $10 is nothing to start investing in your health,
Yep.
because it costs you more than $10 in a copay to go talk to your physician, who's not going to give you the information that we're giving you. So I have another
this is
question.
4 years in the making, Lori. My book is
It's
4 or 5 years, but I did want
beautiful.
to say something really quick. This is the first step you take when I work with anybody is you've got to read this ebook. That's my number one
Right.
request.
Good
And
for
then
you.
so I have 2 other things. Yeah, I've got 3 steps. You do the 3 steps, you're guaranteed to be in 6 weeks. A lot of your symptoms and a lot of what's going on with you will be mitigated.
Right on.
So I have
Right.
another text question for either of you, whoever wants to answer, or if you both want to go back and forth. So someone is asking, so when choosing organic, is it better to shop organic vegetables or shop organic fruits?
Mm.
I have an opinion.
Go.
Fruit is really vulnerable.
Yeah.
So I really think, especially berries, but I think fruit is really vulnerable. You're better off with sticking with organic with the fruit. And then if you are buying non-organic vegetables, watch the heck out of them. I
Yep.
know we take glyphosate off,
Yep.
but try to get the veggies that have hard skins that you can peel.
And we're
Right.
not saying that if you wash it with soap, it's going to remove the glyphosate
No.
because it's been grown and sprayed,
Mhm.
but at least you're not
It's in
going
the
to be
vegetable.
washing. So that
Yeah.
was a follow-up question for this user, this person who called in is, do you taste nasty chemicals in non-organic vegetables or non-organic fruits, or both?
It could be both. I mean, it just depends. You may taste it. You won't taste the deep flavor of the food as much because it's not grown in the soil, right? And it's got the pesticides on it. But I agree with what Suzanne said too. Anything porous,
Mhm.
you know, raspberries, strawberries, it's going to go in deeper into it. So for
Bananas
sure.
are fine. Bananas, they do spray bananas, but you can take the peel off a little.
Yeah. And of avocados, you take the peel off, you know, things like that that you can peel.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even my dad used to peel apples, and apples are full of fiber and they're really good for you. And they
Yeah.
keep the blood sugar levels down with the sweet.
Yes.
They say apples are just nothing but a sugar bomb now. They made them so sweet. They're not even as healthy as they used to be. But you could peel them if you had to. Just eat them with some
Yes.
protein. Eat it with protein. Remember, you guys, anything that's sweet, balance it with a nut butter or a piece of meat. Or
Yeah,
not
a
really
little bit of fat, a little bit of protein. Absolutely.
L-glutamine, like Patty said. Patty,
Yeah,
I have a question
L-glutamine.
for you. Someone is asking, how do they get like a hold of you besides email? Do you teach any classes online for, looks like holistic chef? Like they're mentioning that you had mentioned at one time that you have a class where you teach a 5-star diet plan.
Oh, you talking to me? I'm sorry. I thought you were
Yeah.
talking to Suzanne.
Yeah, no. This
Oh.
question was for you.
Yeah. Yeah. They can reach me through my website too, which is on the Wellness Crusaders website. It's Patty Reese, PATIREISS.com. And my classes are on there. It's actually called Plate Up, but there's another one called the 5-Star Pro Recovery Diet. I
Okay.
teach that through the academy as well too. And yeah, starting to do more classes. I want to start doing more classes locally too, but online is just where everybody can make it, you know?
Okay.
Patty,
Okay.
do you do food classes? Do you do
Mhm.
food classes? We should do something together.
I
love
would
it.
like to do that. So I'm gonna
Oh, we should have a retreat here.
We should do
Well,
a retreat.
Oh my God, absolutely. Lori just wants to eat all of our good food. You know that.
That's true. I've had Suzanne's bread, but I've had Patty's. Oh my gosh, she makes the best turkey meatballs ever.
Oh, Patty, I need your lemon. Don't you make lemon bars?
Yes.
I have a Meyer lemon tree. If you'll share the
Oh, lemon squares.
recipe, the tree is loaded. So if you'll share the recipe, I'll make some and I'll send them to you with some lemons.
Oh, that would be wonderful. I love it. Well, I love that we're talking about this because for our listeners too, this is about eating foods that we still love that are just good for you. Like people are like, well, you have to give up everything. I'm like, no, you just have to modify it and add those nutrient dense ingredients in and still have your lemon bars and your lemon squares and even cakes. You know, you can make them nutrient dense without all the sugar and the junk in it. But eat those collard greens.
Okay,
my
and
God, I gotta go pick mine. They're like beautiful in all this rain.
Oh
oh,
my
you
God.
got to send
The
me
other
a
thing is
picture.
the greens grow year round. Good
And
gracious.
in every meal, have greens, folks. Every meal, just add some greens. Keep adding greens.
There you have, Patty. I have another question for you.
Uh-huh.
It seems like I have listeners texting me, feeding me some questions.
Okay.
So someone is asking, when the cows eat grains that have been sprayed with glyphosate, does the cow absorb those chemicals? And then do we eat the meat? Do they ingest the chemicals because they're eating that meat that may not be grass fed, grass finished?
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're both nodding on that. Yep.
So what are
You are
your
what, don't forget,
wider,
you are what you
can,
eat.
can you make a recommendation for somebody on a budget? If they can't afford grass fed, grass finished, is it going to the local butcher shop and asking them, or what do they do? The
Suzanne, do you
hard,
want to answer?
Yeah, this is big right now.
I
Go
know.
find a local
That's
farmer that is raising cattle. It's happening all over the world right now and all over the
that's right.
country. And you buy a cow from them. We just got a cow. We bought a cow last year and we are eating the meat. And I'm going to tell you, it isn't the same. Grass fed is more like wild game, because the reason why the meat tastes so yummy at the grocery store is that it's grain fed, is because it's fattening and it's not healthy. Think about it. All the things that we love is not healthy, a lot of it. So the junk foods, I mean, so it does taste a little different, but we've gotten used to it. And I'm telling you guys, my energy's been off the charts, my head, I've just felt better eating this grass fed meat.
and then you mentioned the obesity. So I'm assuming then when they're eating the
Greens.
meat that is fed with these grains and
Absolutely.
corn, that could be the reason that some people are a little bit more plumpier than other people, because
No
I'm
question.
assuming it's going to affect their
Absolutely.
endocrine system and they have
Yep.
a harder time like losing weight.
Hey,
No
Lori,
question.
can we talk a minute about what causes fat and what happens
You
with
know
it?
what? Yeah, we could
Not
definitely,
fat, sorry,
let's wrap up with that. That's good.
not fat. What happens with toxins in the
Oh, yes.
foods that
Yes.
that enter your body?
Yes.
Your body doesn't know what to do with these toxins, and
Bingo.
that's what's causing your fat cells.
It
It stores in
stores
your
in
fat
your
cells.
fat.
Yes, and so all these people, this was such a revelation to me when I realized, you see obese people, and you just, first of all, you're disturbed by it, and then second of all, you're like, how do they allow that to happen? Well, first of all, they're nutritionally depleted, so their body is telling them, I need more food. So
That's
eat
right.
more popcorn,
You're not
eat
satiated.
so you're not satiated, but that's what's happening. Your cells, you have fat. We have a certain number of fat cells, and if they don't die off, and these toxins have to. What did we talk about? Toxins store in the fat. That if they don't,
Including the brain, because your brain's
Yeah.
especially the
66%
so
fat.
yeah, sweetie, that was a good one. Oh my God, we have so much to talk about. But one of the things was I don't have a lot of fat in my body. So if you're thin, the fat storing that's in your brain is in your brain. And that's where, if you're eating a bunch of junk food, that's why thin people can get cancers. That's why thin people have all kinds of cardiovascular issues. It's like, how did they have
They go to an organ. There's not enough fat cells, so it goes to an organ.
exactly, it goes here in your brain as an organ. So you're storing all of these toxins in your body. That's what's causing this exorbitant obesity in everybody that you can't even imagine how this is happening. Those are just toxins. So yeah, you are what you eat, and you are what your animals eat.
That's correct.
You are what your animals eat. And this is another reason why.
And your vegetables.
Yes. And this is another reason why, if you stop buying this food, those companies are going to have to change their agriculture, and they're raising these animals.
That's right.
Nobody would eat these animals, you guys, if they saw how they were treated.
I know.
Agreed.
You would
on
never
that.
take your kid. The kids would never eat a McDonald's if they saw what those animals.
I know.
Oof.
And I
Oof.
think it's a good lesson. We need to start talking about that.
So I'm going to do a final takeaway, and then Suzanne, I'm going to ask you, how do our listeners again get a hold of you? You can get a hold of myself. You can get a hold of Patty. You can get a hold of Kathleen. You can get a hold of Jessica at info@thewellnesscrusaders.com. And anyone out there thinking that Ozempic is the right medicine,
Oh,
you have to send us an email and we will give you 2 documents that will not only talk about the lawsuits that are happening, but we will give you something else where it's way safer. And we know that food is addicting and sometimes it's hard, but
mhm,
with the amino acids like L-glutamine that Patty was
mhm,
talking about and
mhm.
5-HTP, there are dietary supplements which are safe to reduce that. But the takeaway and the final thought from all this, and then Suzanne, I'm just going to ask again, how do they find you? Some of the things that you want to remember is that you can always hire a holistic health coach
Mhm.
who has been trained and certified. I mean, between all of us right here, just on this call, we have probably, Patty, you've been doing it for 20 years, 30?
24.
Okay, I've been doing it for a decade. Suzanne, you've been doing it probably for a decade. I mean, think about the
Over.
research, the time and effort and energy
Mhm,
that we have put in to get this information out. So think about hiring holistic health coaches who have been certified.
mhm.
And always remember, you want to talk about the root cause. And the root
Yes.
cause is going to be the soil that is dirt. And that's what our co-host Kathleen Halal specializes in. She is the microbiology girl. Like, she will educate farmers,
Mhm.
she will educate gardeners, and she has a wealth of information. She was actually the first person, and I'm going to say woman because she was the first woman in the state of Utah, in her city, Irvine City, to take Irvine to
California.
non-toxic California organic that they still do today. The schools, the playgrounds, and I just lost the school, the schools and the playgrounds, I guess, are the worst, but she
Mhm.
took them all
Oh,
non-toxic
golf,
organic.
golf courses, for God's sakes.
Oh my
Oh,
God,
Yeah.
that's a whole
now my
nother
son's
topic.
taking up
But
golf.
think about it. The pets are out there playing. We know we're already seeing an uptick in disease. Our
Yeah.
children are playing. They're rolling around in the grass. Even the interview I did a couple weeks ago with Suzanne on the city of Nephi, their parks are being sprayed with these poisons. And then people who don't know, their children are playing on the grass. Children should play on the grass. They should just play in green grass and
Yeah.
clean grass.
That's
It's
part of
not
the
about removing every single dandelion because dandelions are known to help cure cancer,
Right, you
especially in
can
these
eat
farm
them.
animals.
You can eat the
eat
leaves.
them. Eat
You can
them.
eat them. Take the lip
Exactly.
off
Only
and
when
put
they're
them
not
in
sprayed
the
with
dish.
glyphosate. But Suzanne,
Mhm.
one last final thought from you. And how do they get a hold of you?
So my contact is secretstoradianthealth.com. There's a lot of ways on that website to reach out to me, and even I do free half hour, well, 15 minutes to half hour discovery calls. We can certainly talk. I'm happy. I love to talk to people. You buy my ebook, you upgrade, you don't even have to upgrade. You get my freebie. I love a talk. So I'll answer any questions. Secretstoradianthealth.com. And then I'm also on Instagram where I do a fair amount of posting. I've been a little lax lately because I've been so busy doing talks. That is, my handle there is at your wellness designer. And that's another
I
place where
like
you can see
that.
you can see, well, I come from the design industry, so the wellness designer kind of stuck. But
Yeah.
I post a lot of food items, recipes, good tips and such, and I'd love you to follow me there. And yeah, so those are the two places you can reach me. And obviously the ebook is available. It's live right now. You can get you can upgrade, you can get the freebie. And I appreciate it. It is your first step to wellness, and it's chock full of all this information we just talked about. A lot of it.
I am so grateful to both of you. I'm
Mm.
honored just to even call you my friend. So Suzanne,
Oh.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Patty, as always, thank you. I always love being on talks with you. But stay tuned next Thursday. We've got our last talk of the month. It's with Kathleen Halal, Jessica Endicott, Patty Reese, and myself next Thursday on KMMU.org. That's where you can find us live on Thursdays from 4 to 6. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Suzanne. I always love chatting with you. And thank you, ladies.
Thank
Everybody have a wonderful night. please, if you have any further questions, send us an email at info@thewellnesscrusaders.com, and have a good evening. And remember, eat healthy.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Eat
Bye-bye.
well, eat well. Thank you.